the Lax Factor podcast. What is up, college lacrosse fans? You're watching episode 228 of the Lax Factor podcast. I am your host, Ted Hoost, and today I'm going to start laying out my preseason top 20 for Division I. I have been blessed with an actual media poll vote in the Inside Lacrosse media poll in 2023 here. And so I had to start kind of putting this list together. And so I'm going to rip through my first team outside of the list. And then I'm going to cover number 20, number 18, and number 17. And then probably Wednesday I'll get through down into like 12 or so. But before I get into that, as always, be sure to like, subscribe, share the crap out of this video with your homeboys or your homegirls. And you can always go to LaxFactor.com. All of our videos get posted there, as well as the audio version of the podcast. And you can also pick up some swag t-shirts. We've got t-shirts I designed that are just lacrosse specific, as well as our Lax Factor, podcast and regular Lax Factor t-shirts and crap like that. So let's get into it. And the first team I want to talk about, my first team out, and it's not going to come as a surprise to many people, is Syracuse. Now, I came very close to putting Syracuse in as my number 20 team, and my reasoning is if you compare this year's roster to last year's roster, I think especially offensively, they have a lot more depth, and it looks to me like it's a little bit better on paper overall. Yes, Cuse loses their top 4 leading scorers from a year ago, most notably Tucker Dordevic, and his 59 points are heading off to Georgetown to play his graduate year there. I wish him the best of luck. Brendan Curry and his 53 points graduated. Owen Seabold, he filled in admirably for a shorthanded attack unit after Owen Hiltz went down with an injury, as did Mikey Berkman. But let's be honest here, neither is a huge loss overall. And neither would have contributed nearly at that level if Hiltz was playing and they didn't have some other key injuries here and there. Syracuse's new attack unit, the one made up of Owen Hiltz, he had 29 goals, 19 helpers, and 48 points in 2021. Alex Simmons looks like he may be the other starter at attack. Denver transfer. I told people that is a huge pickup for Syracuse when that happened. He put up 30 goals, 15 helpers, and 45 points in 2022 for Denver. And then our new number 22, Joey Spallina, those 3 attackmen have me far more excited when compared to the attack unit that Syracuse put out last year. And Syracuse even being able to put the unit out they did last year required they pull Dordevic down from midfield, which greatly depleted the midfield depth as well. So this new look attack, I think, has Cuse fans a lot more optimistic, and I think on paper and overall, I think that's a much better unit, and I think they'll play better together. Now, the real question mark for this team, and the reason I could not put them in at that top spot, is because Riley Figueroa, I think that's how you probably pronounce that. I'm not 100% sure. They handed him the number 11 here in the fall, and he is lost to an injury. So we were already bad on defense last year, and our only returners now are Nick Casamo. I'm not sure how to pronounce that either, even though I watched every freaking game last year. And Sam Alexo. They're the top returning close defenders right now, and that defense was not very good last year. The only bright spot on defense, we do have a solid group of short stick D-mids. They're not the best short stick D-mids overall, but between Brandon Aviles, once again, Aviles, I always forget how to pronounce his name too, and Dami Olademoye, I think I got that one right, I can never say it, and this is the hungover podcast of 2023, guys. I am feeling pretty rough here this morning. I went to the Elmira Renegade versus the Syracuse Spark PBLA game last night, so I'm feeling a little bit rough around the edges, and my brain is not functioning at a high level, but I am going to still soldier through here. They're both back with more experience. I don't think that we have the greatest group of short stick D-mids, but every short stick D-mid that we roll out on the field between the 4 of them that'll rotate, all of them played a ton of minutes last year. And that will help, I think, a little bit. Also providing a little bit of hope for the Orange is transfer goalie Will Mark. Mark posted a .557 save percentage in 2022 for LIU. If he ends up being the starter because he's got the experience and he can just repeat those numbers, if we can get a goalie between the pipes that saves the ball at a 55% clip, I think that means the defense would probably hold the line about as well as they did last year, and I think this offense is going to be much improved over last year. But alas, as much as I wanted to give Cuse a number 20 spot, because I really do think in 2023 they'll end up a ranked team. I don't think there's any chance they're under 500 again, and I think any team in the ACC that's above 500 is going to end up being a ranked team. I just couldn't put them there without feeling like a homer. I'm trying, as I put the list together here, not to reward teams for last year's success or penalize them for last year's downfalls. But to a degree, I have to, a team that was 4-10 or whatever the hell Syracuse was, I just can't put them in the top 20. I've told a couple of people privately, if they can get a blowout in their first game, in their first couple of games, if they can win this first game against Vermont in a considerable way, I will probably put them in at 20 in my poll after that. And then if they don't and it's close, maybe I still don't work them in. But if they start 3-0, I'm going to have them in between 18 and 20, hands down. And then I think that they should legitimately be 3-0 by the time they hit Maryland here. Another reason I think Syracuse will end up ranked is I feel like the schedule and the way it plays out is a little bit more favorable to Syracuse. We've got 3 games that should all be winnable to start before we get into Maryland, Carolina, Duke, Hopkins. And then we have, so even if they go 3-0 and they drop all 4 of these, they're 3-4, but then we go back to 3 more winnable games that gets them back above 500. So it's going to be a tough outing, a tough go for Syracuse, but I feel like between the games that they should win, if they handle their business there, we know they're going to pick up some conference games, at least 1 or 2 in the ACC. So I like the chance of Syracuse finishing above 500, and I think that gets them ranked. Now, let me shut up about Syracuse because they're not in my top 20. My first and my number 20 team here is going to be Army. Now, Army is a team that I feel confident they'll probably finish in the top 20 by the season's end, but they lost a lot of firepower, specifically on the offensive side with the graduation of Brendan Nichtern. He had 41 goals, 60 assists, and 101 points in 2022. Now, Reese Burke is their top returning scorer, 44 points last season. The reality, Army is going to need some guys to step up to make up for the huge void that Nichtern leaves behind. To put it in perspective, Army's top 3 returning point getters combined for 110 points. Nichtern had 101 by himself last year. They also lose a very high-end and quality goalie in Wyatt Schupler, and their situation on defense is a bit murky as well after losing some guys to graduation. In 2022, they didn't have a single defender that played and started in every single game of the year. So they had a lot of guys getting in and out and starting different games due to injury and whatnot. AJ Pilati, or Pilot, I'm not sure how to pronounce that either. He's the top returner in terms of takeaways, and Deacon Donaldson he contributed heavily last year also. I think he started 9 of 14 games, played in 14, started 9 of them. Overall, key returners for Army: Reese Burke, 29 goals, 15 assists, 44 points off 31.9% shooting. Paul Johnson had 37 points off 36.1% shooting. Jacob Morin, 27 goals, 2 helpers off 31.4% shooting. And then you have AJ there on defense, 13 caused turnovers, 27 GBs, and then Deacon Donaldson, 10 caused turnovers, 24 GBs. So Army, again, it's tough to tell here because Boston U, the Patriot League, is a quality conference, and just like the ACC, they tend to beat each other up. The Patriot League is famous for the teams kind of eating their own to a degree. So Army will have to fare well again in the Patriot League, and I'm not sure. This is one where I think there's a really good chance we have it's kind of a next man up concept for Army, but there is a chance that Army is one of these teams that fall out of the top 20 because it is going to be very difficult for them it's going to take them some time to find a new offensive identity after you lose a 100+ point scorer. And I'm just not sure about the depth. They're not a team that brings in transfers and crap like that, like some of these other teams have so far. So I do like Army. I'm going to start them at my in the 20 spot. They were 12-4 last year. So, I mean, come on. They weren't that bad, and they could still be a ranked team even if they were 10-6 or something like that. But idea being, I think that Army will end up finding a couple of guys offensively to contribute. I think with Army, typically whatever goalie they plug in ends up being really solid, because nobody knows what's going to happen after you graduate an All-American caliber goalkeeper. And you don't know always what to expect out of the new guy. But one thing that's for sure, Army usually puts good defenses on the field, and that usually helps their goalies, traditionally stay in that range of 53 to 58% in terms of ball stopping. So I think that's a fair pick, and we'll see how they do. My number 19 team in my poll is going to be Richmond. Now, what I like about Richmond is they've proven that they can turn solid lacrosse players into stars. Lanchbury comes to mind here. And they've consistently played at a high level against a tough schedule year in and year out, and that includes with their turnover. What I don't like about Richmond in 2023, they only have 2 guys coming back that scored more than 20 points. Dalton Young, he had 39 goals, 23 helpers, and Lance Madonna, 25 goals and 12 helpers. They did pick up Derek Madonna, Hobart transfer, but that doesn't answer all of the questions they're going to have on the offensive side. But they play a very, very a team first kind of offense. So I feel like you're going to see guys step up. Young could absolutely just tear it up this year. Lance Madonna I like as well. So we'll see how that plays out. But offensively, they have some holes to fill and some questions that have to be answered before we know what we're really going to see out of this Richmond team. They also lost 2 of their starting 3 close defenders. Only Jake Saunders, I believe he was an honorable mention All-American, and his 23 caused turnovers return. They do return 2 goalies that played considerable minutes. Each stopped the ball above a 55% clip. So that should help their inexperienced defense a little bit, and that's the reason I have them still in this poll. There was 3 teams that I thought about dropping out as I was sitting here trying to figure out where I was going to put Syracuse, but I ended up believing that, hey, man, what they did between what they did last year and who they have coming back, all of these teams deserve these 3 spots. So Richmond, right there, they're my number 19. They were 11-5 last year, 4-1. They lost to Penn in the first round of the NCAA tournament, and Jacksonville actually won their conference during the regular season. But Richmond was able to beat Jacksonville in the SoCon finals to actually get that NCAA tournament bid. That had to just tear the hearts out of Jacksonville. Key returners, as I said, Dalton Young, 39 goals, 23 helpers, 37.5% shooting. Lance Madonna, 25-12 off 30.5% shooting. Derek Madonna, the Hobart transfer, 33-6 off 34% shooting. So they have a good core of guys that can put points up, and I think they'll all obviously improve their output so long as they're healthy. Saunders, 23 caused turnovers, 33 GBs, and then Braden McClure, the LSM, 14 caused turnovers, 20 GBs. And then in cage, Zach Veek, I don't know how to pronounce that. He had a 5.52 save percentage, 9-4 win-loss record. He didn't start every game, but he got the majority of the minutes and the time in cage for Richmond last year. All right, here we go. My third team that I'm going to talk about today, technically my 4th team I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to put Jacksonville in at number 18. And their schedule is going to be brutal to start right off here. So it's one of those deals where it's going to be hard if Syracuse wins their first couple not to drop Jacksonville down. Same thing with Richmond. If we look at Richmond's schedule, if I come back here, they start out with Carolina. I like Richmond's schedule a little bit more for keeping them in the top 20. But, if you're Jacksonville and you're starting out against Hopkins and Duke and you drop both of those games, you better whoop up on Marist and, get a win over High Point here after that. But anyway, Jacksonville, tough read for me in 2023. Once again, similar to Richmond. On the offensive side, it's absolutely bonkers. And this is why I think Jacksonville, actually, they have a good shot at beating Hopkins and scaring Duke, I think, early in the season. And how they play against those teams will determine what I do in the polls after, obviously, here. But I think they might be better than they were in 2022. And offensively, they were very good in 2022. They bring back their top 3 leading scorers. All of them started all 17 games last season. Max Walbaum, he had an insane 72 points off 48 goals and 24 dishes last year. Jacob Greiner, he was 51-18. Jackson Intrieri, 31-30. They're both back as well. But their big get in the transfer portal was Georgetown transfer Dylan Watson. That dude put up 58 goals and 6 helpers in 2022 for the Hoyas. So that's huge. And that's not the only transfer. They got a transfer midfielder from UMBC. They've picked up a couple of transfers to kind of fill out the depth on the offensive side, specifically at midfield. Now, defensively is where I'm not a big fan of what Jacksonville has going. They lose, I believe, 2 of their starting 3 polls. Jack Heed is the only close defender, I believe, that's coming back. Tucker Garrity, short stick D-mid, kind of a 2-way midfielder. He's back as well. They combined for 38 caused turnovers over a year ago, or last year, not over a year ago. In 2022, 38 caused turnovers between the two of them. Heed, as I said, will anchor the close defense. Garrity will lead the defensive midfield unit. I am a big fan of Garrity because he's as close to a two-way midfielder as you see these days. He forced 18 turnovers and also put up 6 goals and 8 helpers in 2022. Despite those top 2 returners on the defensive side, the short stick D-mid unit will be strong. Oh, I don't know why. That didn't make sense the way I worded that. The short stick D-mid unit's going to be strong. I think they even brought in a couple of transfers that you could kind of call defensive midfielders as well, but they're inexperienced at close defense and LSM. That's one of the question marks that I have, and one of the things I'm interested to see what will happen in those first 2 games against Hopkins and Duke. But then returning goalie Luke Milliken, he'll need to have a big-time year in 2023 to make sure that they can consistently outscore their opponents. Why I still like Jacksonville despite their defensive losses is that Milliken's back, and yes, they might put an inexperienced defense on the field, but they're going to have a veteran goaltender who put up good numbers last year. He had a .582 save percentage last year and started all 17 games. So he had a veteran defense in front of him. So maybe we see that save percentage take a hit, but as long as he can stay above 54, 55% or so, I like Jacksonville's ability to outscore their opponents a great deal. So I think they're going to be okay despite those defensive losses. You might even see Jacksonville climb the polls. I dropped them to 18 because of that loss to Richmond in the finals last year, in the SoCon finals last year, and because of their losses on defense, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them come out and play very respectable in their first 2 games against Hopkins and Duke, and then they get Marist, High Point, UMass Lowell, so they'll be able to string some wins together after that. So key returners here, as I said, Walbaum 48-24, Jacob Greiner 51-18, Jackson Intrieri 31-30, Dylan Watson 51-18, Jack Heed 20 caused turnovers, Tucker Garrity 18 caused turnovers to go with 6 goals and a helper, and then 37 GBs, and then Luke Milliken 5.82 save percentage with a 14-3 win-loss record. So that's the start of my list here. I wanted to get through 15 today, but the hangover prevented me from doing so. So I got you to my number 18 team, and I'm going to cover numbers 17 through probably 15. I'll probably do the next 3 in Wednesday's episode. I'll talk a little bit about the PBLA. I actually went to the Elmira game. The PBLA, either am I chirping the PBLA about their lack of stats after the game that I went to last weekend? Either I got some free tickets from them because of my chirp, and they were trying to make up for it, or I got some free tickets because I praised and gave glowing reviews of the actual experience. So they gave me 4 free tickets to go see Elmira and the Syracuse Spark. Elmira Renegades versus the Syracuse Spark play last night up in Elmira. The whole family, I went with the whole family, and my daughter had an incredible time. My son went to the Binghamton game with me. My daughter's going to the next game I go to in Binghamton. But the whole family went, and my daughter was fully in, clapping like crazy the whole time. We got to see Bubba Voigt score a filthy between-the-legs goal in Elmira's win. I actually left with about like 47 seconds left or something like that to get out ahead of the crowd at one of the stoppages of play. The game was physical as all hell. A lot of goal scoring, going back and forth. Actually, Elmira jumped out to a 6-0 lead, and I thought they were just going to roll Syracuse from there, but Syracuse battled back and ended up tying it up, and it kind of came down to the wire. Elmira scored a couple of late goals to get themselves, I think, a three-goal cushion by the time we left. But for real, the Brad Voigt goal, and I'll have rolled the highlights of that as you're listening to this, that was dirty, and it was great to see Bubba score himself. I think he had 2 goals on the game in the win, and I didn't know that was him here. I saw Voigt playing at Binghamton here, and I knew it was a Voigt, and in my head I was just thinking, well, that must be like a little brother or a cousin or some crap like that. PY homies are the craziest, but no, it was in fact Bubba Voigt. And once again, it was because we didn't have easy access to the rosters and crap like that while we were watching the game. So that's it, everybody. I will be back on Wednesday to go through number 17, number 16, and number 15 on my list. I already have the poll fully worked out, top to bottom. I just have to write up and kind of research each team as I go. So I'll be back Wednesday with the rest of my 17 through 15, and then I'll be back Friday with another film review. So this is today's episode, the hangover episode of 2023. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Again, you can go to LaxFactor.com to watch all of our videos there, and you can get swag and support us that way as well. But really, all I ask, share the video with your friends, like the video, subscribe to us, and like us and follow us on Instagram, TikTok, all the other places that you can find us. I'm trying to be more active in all of those places, especially Instagram and TikTok. I'm trying to put at least a short or two up every day or two. So that's it. Thank you. And Hoost is out. The Lax Factor Podcast.